Hello, in this video, I'll be discussing tailoring your profile, like customizing your profile for that desired position. A very important video. I think you'll enjoy it. All right, in this section, I'm going to be discussing something that's really more targeted. And it's what I'm kind of really well known for when I work directly with people in career development on LinkedIn. And that's to tailor your profile for that desired position. Even when I've worked with executive recruiters and trained executive recruiters, when you go out there and you go into the job area, they always say update your resume, make it targeted. It's very common right now in the human resources area to target your resume to the position, right? And they always, I'm hearing that being said over and over again because there's so many diversity of positions, right? So they're looking, how do you stand out from the crowd? There's 1,000 people applying for that job. So, they need something that matches up the wording so you can at least get an interview. And LinkedIn is weird in that way. It's so much different than the traditional way. Like you're going to go through this animated bot system that looks through your resume and that gets all the keywords out and does everything like that. I recommend that more tailoring in that sense is like, yes, you could look at, let's say, 10 different companies that you're really, really interested in working with, right? 10 specific different companies. So, and I might be able to look specifically at the job openings in those 10 targeted companies within a certain desired career advancement, career space within those companies. And what I mean by that is like, you really have to tailor to the company culture. And I think that's what really stands you out, tailoring your position to the company culture. So it's more than simply looking at the wording in a position that they have. It's looking at the culture as a whole. So you have to begin to evaluate their social and internet space more deeply. So you're really looking at the executives on LinkedIn that work for the group and how they describe the company. And you look at all the different angles, their business directory, their board of directors, their listings, the blogs about them, or anything about that company that's brand new or upcoming. And by integrating that into your experience levels or that areas or your interest levels, that can make you very much stand out from the crowd when you have the attention of the HR VPs of the area, especially the VPs, because usually the VPs are the ones making up that area. And the VPs can often then shift your profile down to the appropriate people, and that's where you get this ability to get the phone call or the interview. So this is something that I work a lot with people on, and it's kind of amazing the results I see with it once it's followed specifically when I work with people. Now, another one here is really, really important. And this is a part that people never really do correctly all the time on LinkedIn. And that is to know yourself, right? I mean, you might say, I really love to work for this company. I love to have this kind of position. But when you write down what you really like and what you really would love to do, they don't match up, right? It doesn't really, so there's a kind of an illusion in your mind. So you really have to dig down deep to understand yourself in order to have a perfect match. And that's a perfect match for the other ones as well. Because in the world of the corporate world and the business world, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to CEOs that said, oh, well, we thought we had the perfect hire, and then, it just wasn't the perfect hire. And it wasn't because the person wasn't, good at work or anything. They just weren't passionate about it. They just weren't, they just really were waiting for the weekend, and waiting for the day to be over and looking for that paycheck. And you got to want something more, right? And so you got to ask for something more. And so as I break down, you look at, these people are creative directors or operation managers and all those things. You have to dig deep to really understand yourself. And that really is the history of your whole work. Even if you're just coming right out of college or you're more mid-level or senior level, it is holistic. And what I'm working with people on is a holistic approach. And that holistic approach will make you a lot happier in the end. Okay, the knowledge to develop your professional story. Now, what I mentioned there was that. So I'm trying to put the elements together for you. So you really got these 4 elements. You got your job experience, your job skills, your passion projects, and your involvement in the community, right? These all need to come together to tell a professional story, an experience story for your experience levels, for what you have. And so you might have been with a company, but at that company, you also were involved in community outreach, right? In some way through the company. And failing to mention that actually doesn't help you. You don't stand out because you don't mention that you did this kind of work, community outside work with the company you were with prior. And really, you don't get complete about what's passionate for you, right? And sometimes the passion projects turn into the best offers. The things you're really, really passionate about, and you mentioned that you're really, really passionate about, those often convert. And you have to understand something really, really important in the corporate arena is that the corporate people actually are making up positions. And then those positions are put down to the mid-level, the human resource levels in that level. So oftentimes in the board and all that, they're discussing a new rollout of a product, a new rollout of something, and they are making up positions for the rollout. And so that doesn't mean that it's necessarily posted already. And so if you have it there and you get the attention of a VP, you may be the early adapter, early person in something that really is awesome. And I can't stress this enough to really be complete and transparent when you make that story. Now, crafting the story of your job experience. Now, use all your past job descriptions, cross-market your former employer. This is a deep conversation I have when I work with people about developing their perfect profile and a profile that is unique to them. And they often forget to do certain things, right? So if you have previous positions, you'll usually have job descriptions. So I mean, you can take up a Word doc, for example, because LinkedIn is a Microsoft product. They're both Microsoft Word that, and you can begin to copy paste all the just job descriptions you've had in your career, even if you've had one, and you can look at those job descriptions, right, and the wording in those job descriptions. But if you don't go to the about, the passion, everything about the company that you previously had, you're missing a lot of wording. You're missing a lot of detailed storytelling. And if you don't do, a search in Google search on them about the news press release about them, but their new products or their history or their CEO or their board of directors, all these things have really important wording and imaging to tell a more deep and interesting story of your experience levels that you're failing to do. And the biggest part of this that people don't realize in the employment world is that if you work for a corporation or a company, you get what's called their brand equity. And what I'm going to discuss here is really in this big kind of, big umbrella idea. And what I mean by that is that there's online presence, which means you have a personal brand and people see your online brand. And that's what you're building, a professional online brand in LinkedIn. But the brand of who you worked with may even have a stronger brand. For example, like if you worked for Apple, how many people know who Apple is? I mean, lots of people who know who Apple is. I mean, people know Apple as a product, computers and iPhones and all these things more than they do the physical Apple anymore, right? So if I said Apple, you might not think of an Apple. You would think of these products made by the company called Apple. So that's called brand equity. And that brand equity is extremely powerful for career development. So if you have worked with a brand name any industry, from healthcare to computers to technology, then you're going to be able to hold that brand equity for the rest of your life. And as long as had a good relationship with the company while you were there, that's really important. But that brand equity is part of your building of your career, ongoing and ongoing. So it's very, very important to realize that you're leveraging that throughout your entire life. And it is something that is the most important part, really, in the ability of a career advancement. So when you're choosing a company specifically, then you really need to think about that, right? You really need to think that, hey, I'm going to go work for Apple. And I'm going to work for Apple because I think Apple's products are really, really cool. Or I'm going to go work for Microsoft because I think Microsoft's really, really cool. But you realize that once you start working for Apple or Microsoft, the fact that you work for Apple or Microsoft, it becomes permanent. And I can tell you that because you can see executives and people that used to work for Apple or Microsoft be interviewed all the time as subject market experts in the news or in technology news or business news constantly, right? So they are considered, because they worked for that company, a subject market expert. And that part right there is the secret, a little bit of the secret to uniqueness and then leveraging uniqueness. And what I'm describing to you is something that you should be doing for the rest of your career. Okay. Now, writing everything is difficult, right? And you're going to get into that writing mode in your experience levels. And what I say to you is, yes, you have a description of how cool the company is, your previous company, or if you're self-employed, what you have. And I say highlight 2 to 3 of your best accomplishments in that experience level, right? 2 or 3 of your best accomplishments on your LinkedIn. Because you want it to read down and you want to create a little bit of a wow factor, but not too much that it overwhelms them. And I have to express something to you on LinkedIn, is that the interconnectivity of LinkedIn, and when you read someone's LinkedIn profile, has 2 aspects to it. One, it is a written story, a professional story of your life. And 2, it is a visual story with images and video and all these different things that you can input into it. And 3, it's an influence space, right? So these 3 things come together when you look at thinking of accomplishments. Now, the influence space oftentimes is the key space that allows you to connect with other people. And what I mean by that is, well, you have the accomplishments, you have the really well-written profile, but you really don't have the contacts in the company, right? So that's the failing part that doesn't allow you to get the transition into the company and the position you like in the company. So you really have to target specifically the companies you wish. Don't try to be all things for all people. And once you're inside of a company and you get that offer, remember something very, very important, that their brand equity becomes yours. Thank you so much for watching this video on tailoring your profile for that desired position, customizing and tailoring it. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my channel, and we will see you next time.